Hey, welcome back to The Weight of Being Seen. I'm Anne Alagan, and this again is a reminder that it's a larger project that I've been working on that began with my MBA at UWSP. And I'm so excited for you to listen in to this conversation. LYNA is one of the major inspirations of why I even decided to pursue my MBA. And one of the key reasons is I just know that she has been through it, and when you're with someone who has also walked through trenches, you know that anything's possible. So enjoy this conversation. I hope that you were just as delighted as I was getting to connect with this woman.
What is your current role?
Right now, I direct the MBA program at UWSP. I am an associate professor here, so I teach in the MBA. I'm also a consultant for the Center for Creative Leadership. I'm an on-call facilitator with them. And then I do my own coaching with folks right now through my own practice called Next You Unleashed. So a few places that I like to show up.
What was the thing that was happening before you got to the MBA director role?
I love transformation. I'm here to be part of transformation and to provoke transformation and to engage in my own transformation. That is at the core of my being. And I started having this question in my work as a leader's companion. If I had a longer period of time with a single leader, would that make a difference in my practice? And so at the time I was doing corporate work where the longest I'd get to spend with any single leader would be about a week, and then maybe I'd see them a few times over the years as they progressed. And I started really wondering about teaching. And I'm kind of a natural born teacher. As soon as I learned something, I would teach it as a kid growing up. My wondering was, if I got to spend 8 weeks or 16 weeks with someone, would that shift? And if I got to spend it with them earlier in their career, because in corporate America, folks aren't investing until they're much later in their development trajectory, right? And so I was curious, what happens if I intervene earlier in the development trajectory and I get to be there for longer? And so I started experimenting with teaching. And that experiment led to my deciding I would get a PhD. And getting a PhD led to me saying, well, what if I experimented with becoming a full-time educator? And I got on the tenure track. So I was on the tenure track here at UWSP, and that was going well. I'd done the research as part of a team for the MBA. It looked good for having an MBA. And then we hit a pause point. At the same time we hit that pause point, I went on this wild adventure. I have this little mini obsession with tiny houses, and I lived tiny one summer out on the West Coast where I have family. Lived in several different tiny houses, my dog and I. While I was on that adventure exploring what it would be like to be that person, I had an invitation from the Center for Creative Leadership, which is epic in my field, it's the place. I had an invitation to come for an interview. In California, I found somebody to take care of my dog, and I flew to North Carolina, and I interviewed for a job on their consulting practice in education. While I was there, I met somebody who ran the business and global markets. So that was summer. I came home, nothing had come of that. They'd found another fantastic candidate who had a lot of experience in K through 12 education that I didn't have. And so, for me, that opportunity was over. But right before the semester started, then I got a call to come back and interview on their global markets team, which would be servicing Fortune 500, Fortune 100 clients. Well, I got the job. So I'm on the tenure track, and my dream company offers to relocate me and let me work for them. They're gonna pay me to work for them. But when you're on the tenure track, you never, ever leave the tenure track. That's quite an accomplishment, especially for me late in my career. So I left. And it wasn't easy for anybody in any part of my life that I moved to the East Coast. And I did that for about 18 months. And I was exhausted. It's really hard, the amount of travel. I was supposed to travel max 2 weeks a month, and I was traveling more than that. And so I got a call that said, hey, we've got the green light to launch the MBA. You ready? And I said, yeah, I'm definitely ready. And the reason I could say that was because the best part of that year and a half while I was in North Carolina doing what I thought was my dream work and finding out that it was exhausting and that it might not be my dream after all. While I was doing that, the best part of the year was when a student that I had taught at an East Coast college in an online program at the master's level, and a student that I had taught at UWSP at the undergrad level, they had each contacted me within a week of each other. One, I was writing a letter for his grad school application for his PhD. The other wanted to enter the same field as the guy I was writing the letter for. And I'm like, you guys should talk to each other. So I had these 3 interactions, right? I talked to each of them, coached them, reconnected, and then I got them connected to each other because they were going to be helpful to each other. And that was my high point in that year and a half. So when I got the call, would you interview for coming back to launch the MBA? I'm like, you mean I get to live in Point again? What are the threads in that story, right? Again, it's transformation. It's certainly this community, certainly relationships. And isn't that funny that the PhD is like the last thing? It's supposed to be the thing that most prepared me for the work, but it really, interesting. I wouldn't have known I was going to say that.
It was just like a step along the way that took you to go see the other things.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You know, in the PhD, I don't know if everybody has as humbling an experience as I did, but it helped me understand how much I don't know. This high-powered credential exposed me to the world of everything depends. You know, I lost all my certainty about almost everything. I thought I wanted to take my passion for transformation to higher education. And if you look at the story of my life, I would say, and this is a non-dramatic statement, education saved my life. So, and I've said this to people before, education has a hold on me. Because this isn't easy work. It's not easy to work in a 130-year-old institution and an industry that is, in many cases, dying. It's a hard industry to be in right now, and I can't give up.
But in our conversation before, you mentioned how education has saved you, and that actually had helped me understand what I was doing, because I had no clue when I entered college. I was like, I don't know, I just have to walk this direction. And it took me 5 years before I got to the MBA and worked with you, where it was like, oh, that's what it was doing. It was providing structure and chaos, and so it was just, that was a really powerful statement that affected me, and that's 2 years ago when we first started, before I entered the MBA program.
But remember, we met before that.
Yes, a whole year. I had to get my bachelor's in order to get to you. That's that was my trajectory.
I very much will always remember our first conversation.
Oh my gosh. So then we were with the North Carolina, getting to do your dream job that you were thinking, PhD, because you're like, all right, I want to take this transformational into the college level. And so in order to get to even those 2 pieces, what was the element before that?
I think if I had to say, there are 2 elements that probably prepared me to be who I am today and show up how I do today. One is my wonderful corporate experience. You know, I have 25 years experience in the marketplace in telecommunications and cellular telecommunications. I got to be part of the cowboy crew that started cellular telecom. I was at Motorola where we were building out those infrastructure systems. I was traveling all over the world, running conferences, teaching, multi-million-dollar buyers how to optimize those systems. I was putting those conferences together. I had a decade in at Motorola when things were really good, traveled all over the world. And then I got to work at US Cellular, and at US Cellular I got to be part of the team that led a major transformation from when the phone just made phone calls to when the phone became this essential device in our lives, right? I was the team that transformed our infrastructure. I was part of that team that transformed our infrastructure so that the phone could do more than make calls, and at the base of that is putting apps on the phone.
Wow.
And I got to, and that transformation impacted every single element. So if you think about what happens when you push that button on your phone, there's so much amazing technology that is going on, the infrastructure that has to be in place, the multi-million-dollar systems that have to be in place, all the billing systems and customer service. So anyway, it's a fascinating industry. And I grew up in that industry, and it was a time when if you could talk, if you could solve a problem, you got promoted. And so in my decade at Motorola, I got promoted every 12 to 18 months. At US Cellular, I mean, I'm a kid from nowhere, and that's the other one, so I'm a kid. I always say I'm a girl from nowhere. You're a classic nobody, and because of the time in telecom, because of the being at engineering, problem-solving oriented organizations, people saw that in me, and I got a lot of invitations. I have rarely ever interviewed for a job. I mean, I have, and I teach people how to interview, but mostly I just get invited into jobs we create for me.
Wow.
Mostly.
They're like, oh, that job doesn't exist. We're going to create that.
It's more around an opportunity and a problem to solve. Thus, the MBA was an opportunity and a problem to solve, and I had the passion and the grit and the network. Network building. I love people, and I love inviting people to bring their magic, their unique magic, to do something. So then we'll go backwards one step off of unique magic. So I entered a world of terribly unique magic. Right, that's where I start life, and you can say it that way, or you can say I entered life through the dark night of the soul. You can take the full presence of light or the full absence of light to describe my past. But I was born to a 17-year-old hippie in California in 1967. Life got stable for me when we started living on the Carnival. So I learned to read driving from town to town on street signs. That's how my mom taught me to read, because we were so mobile. And Carney life was really quite stabilizing, because we might be somewhere for a week or a couple of weeks. So when it came time to go to kindergarten, I could already do amazing math. I could spell, I could write, I could read, I could do a lot of things that my peers couldn't do. I wasn't socially prepared to be in mainstream America, though.
From Carney life, so that's your formative years.
Yeah, I was not socially prepared to be a child. I was a full-on adult by the time I skipped kindergarten, so I just went right into first grade.
Wow.
And so by the time I entered first grade, I showed up as an adult. And it was very socially awkward.
I feel like that must have been disorienting.
Well, we moved enough that it wasn't.
Okay.
I went to 14 different schools before I graduated high school.
Wow.
And I spent 3 years at the last place, little town in Glen, Iowa. Graduated a class of 26 people.
Wow.
So we moved a lot, and awkward.
Okay.
I just thought the rest of the world was weird.
Yeah.
I think I've lived that way my whole life, like trying to figure out why the rest of the world operates the way it does. Yeah. I don't understand.
Yeah. So with the Carney life, was that a strong community?
Oh, like you wouldn't believe. It's a very, very strong community.
You learned the power of community outside of your direct family union.
Absolutely. Family units are created, not made.
Yes, let's say traditional family unit. You grew up with a community being family.
Oh my gosh, completely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like you had a lot of different teachers?
Oh my gosh, right. Right, so old Cigar had a very heavy accent, and he painted a lot of the trailers and rides. That's what he did when we were in winter quarters. I remember 1976, how everything looked leading up to 1976, how amazing the trailers and the rides looked. Everything was repainted. But he also ran a patch joint. So, right, you'd buy these patches, and I wore a patch from Cigar to first grade on my my little jean jacket that I have hand sewed. It said shit. I wore that to first grade. But Cigar's this old African American guy, and he'd come by and, you know, most nights see if my mom needed a 6-pack or cigarettes, and would pick those things up. We lived in a trailer, and he'd come by, and yeah, you know, Cigar was definitely a mentor, and you know, just kind of a wise old guy. And then Uncle Baldy. Uncle Baldy, who went to the penitentiary, he was a very handsome man. And when Uncle Baldy went to the penitentiary the first time, because he went more than once, he got every bone in his face broken. So he became a very ugly man with the soul of a handsome man.
Wow.
This is a little bit of a edgy story. We were living in Arizona, and a lot of truckers in my family at this point, and Baldy being one of them, and also his brother. And Baldy came to town, and he had a younger woman with him. I don't know how old she was, but she was a hooker, you know, a lot hooker and then that's how they met, and then she was now with him. And I was this early junior high, so the 6th, 7th grade-ish, and I was fascinated, so I interviewed her. Like, I remember, like, just trailing her around our place, like, asking lots of questions about what her lifestyle was like, and how she got into that, and who she was, and what it felt like to spend her time and her energy in that space.
Wow. And you were how old?
Well, it was 6th grade, maybe 7th.
Okay. So, like, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's different. Or not different, that's just like...
It was her job,
yeah.
Right? And so I knew dancers, I knew other, you know, so I'm gonna freak you out now. My mom said to me more than one time, my biological mother said to me more than one time that she felt, and culturally, and maybe this is part of why I'm such an advocate for myself and others as a woman, her experience of life had been that women were always trading that parts of themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, she felt that, I'm trying to say this, I'm not going to use her language, but, you know, the women were prostitutes. It just was what you were selling and what you were getting. And so growing up now, that the women in my life were, at least some of them, were bartering the most sacred parts of themselves for existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To feed your kid, right? So I was born when she was 17, of course.
Yeah.
This mentality now makes sense, right? If you look at it that way.
Wow.
And so I think that led me on a journey over time where I had to find and reframe those parts of myself, that I couldn't define myself the way the women in my life had defined themselves. And then, gosh, that journey has opened me up to being an advocate for all women.
And transformation.
And absolutely, I mean, I've led my own transformation so many times. And what I find interesting, sometimes when I'm companioning someone on their transformation, they then want me to be transformed even more. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I'm getting older, so I'm getting more able to say, I work every day to be who I am. I don't mean it's heavy labor.
No.
But I'm intentional. Like, I'm not me by accident. I worked at this. I had to put in the time and intention. And so I think that at the heart of my fascination and my companionship of others as they transform, my companionship in this institution as it transforms and other institutions, has really been my own work to decide who I want to be and go ahead and have the courage to be that.
Yeah. I think that's what's really powerful, or what I notice when I'm with you, is that I know you've walked through it. Like, you're not just doing this from a book for a job. You've like literally walked a transformational path, and that's what has always attracted me to you, is just like, oh, you know, I can talk with you and you have an innate understanding, and that experience is so much more powerful.
That's right. So there's a couple ways to think about the intervention we've designed, right?
Yeah.
Education or a master's degree is an intervention. We're intervening in knowing, doing, and being.
Yes.
All three levels at one time. And we're intervening in a provocative way, meaning we support you as the designer.
Yes.
We don't tell you who you have to be, but we provoke you to design what you know, to design what you do, and to design who you are.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, so then you were 25 years in the corporate field. Okay, so let's go back to, you had 3 years left at your high school. Did you go to, like, that was the one place where you're like, okay, this is the longest I've been in one place.
Yeah.
A lot of things. Did you ever get antsy during that time? Because you were so used to changing? Yeah. So you're like, okay, was it like, I can't get, like, what led your next step from there? Let's go back to, like, 18-year-old LYNA.
And you are seeing the soul of a human. Did you get antsy? You know, it's where I get my drive and my energy, is that antsiness, that restlessness. And it's also, it causes so much trouble, right?
Yes.
And I'm always managing that, not going too fast, not leaving too soon, not, right? And, because I do get antsy. So 18-year-old LYNA was extraordinarily antsy. Because I'm older, so a little bit older than my classmates, so I turned 18 in the middle of the year.
Okay.
And I didn't get along all the time with Carol, the wonderful woman who took care of me when my mother couldn't. So she stepped into that gap quite willingly, and she's done that over and over and over again with kids, right? And she's tough and she's hard. And she's just a badass, and our badassery conflicted. And so it was really hard for me to stay in the home those last 6 months, right, between turning 18 and graduating high school. I knew I wanted to go on to college, and I had a high school counselor that was really committed. He'd help me get some scholarships so I could go on to college, because that was the only way I was going to go. And I talked to him a lot over those 6 months, and he kept me in that house because he was pretty sure that if I moved out, that restlessness was going to take over, and I would. And in the history of my family, of course, I would have gotten distracted. So you could probably take that, and you could find that story in the rest of my life, like the tension between being ready, sometimes before I'm ready, and living in that tension. It's interesting.
Yeah. Wow. So you knew, like, after all those years of traveling, meeting a ton of different teachers that were outside of traditional institutions.
Yes.
Then at one point, like, did you know that you're like, I don't want this lifestyle and I want to build something different? Because that's huge. Like, you had to fight against everything that you knew and what your mom and, like, your community, like that. Did you feel like a sense of betrayal in there, or were they rooting for you? Like,
both and.
Yeah.
When I went to college, the Carol who I just described, didn't quite understand why I was going to college, and where talks about me being on my high horse. I mean, they're extraordinarily proud that I've done the education that I did, but at that time, remember, we were conflictual, so there was that weirdness around, I had to push through. But the question that you asked me made me think of this time. So, right, I grew up in what a lot of our culture would call poverty. Right, we were at the upper end of poverty, so I didn't know, because we were well-to-do socioeconomically in our class. But if you compared that class to everyone else, we were in the lower bracket. And so, my mom died of alcoholism. I took her off life support when I was 21 years old, my biological mom. So I lived in the heart of addiction, and addiction doesn't look like it often gets portrayed on TV as like this sudden flame out. No, it's this long, painful life that has ups and downs just like every other life. But there's this compulsion that threads through the entire life. And so I grew up, coffee table magazines were Easy Rider and, topless women and the pot tray was under the table. And those were just normal parts of my life. And so one of the things that fascinated me when I got to corporate America, I'm young, I'm 21, 22, traveling all over the world. I remember this moment in China, and I was traveling with top executives, both from our firm and from the firms we were selling to, again, multi-million-dollar sales, multi-year sales cycle. And so give you an example, right? Went to Thailand, was the only woman in the trip that went to Thailand. The bar I got taken to had, young women with a number on their panties. They were topless, and a number on their panties, and you could select what woman you wanted to be with by the number. And these were my colleagues who thought it'd be a great idea, because I was just out with the guys. And I remember through that period of time in my life, I thought it smells the same, right? So what I experienced in my childhood, poverty, addiction, I had criminals in my life, right? That they were just Uncle Baldy. That smelled exactly the same as this very rich, right? Very wealthy, very prosperous. There was no real difference between what was going on in the souls and the energy and the access to magic. Like, money doesn't create magic, and hardship doesn't create magic, right? It's not those conditions that create that. And I'm always attracted to, energy and movement and amazing people and beauty, right? Those things are so compelling to me, and I love change. And neither of those things were inherently in either culture. And so, I remember one day at Motorola, like I got to spend time with amazing people there. And there was this power couple there. They were both, just amazing humans. They were in very high positions. And I had a time in my life where I got to hang out with her, and she had invited several of us over to their home, and it was amazing. And like things from all over the world, all over the home, and a story to go with everything. And, I was working 70-hour weeks at the time, and they were at least working those. And I remember being in her house and walking around and having a lovely time, and it just settling inside my gut. I'm not gonna try to get this. Right? I just knew that the cost was too high for something that seemed, it didn't her, I don't know what I mean by this, but the energy that was in her home and in her life was in this multi-million-dollar mega home with gorgeous and wonderful, lovely people. But the energy in their home wasn't any different than the energy in my trailer. My X-foot trailer growing up with a bed and back and a bunk bed in front.
Yeah.
It wasn't any different. There wasn't anything there that I found compelling enough to make the sacrifices for, which is why higher ed has me. So far, it's been the only thing that's compelling enough, the transformation in humans and what the humans, like, think about you, think about the level of provocation you've had in your different classes from your different colleagues. Think about this fellowship project, right? That level of provocation, it doesn't matter. Like, I get to be in the moment with you. That moment never matters. It's good, it's important, but what matters to me are all the moments that come after that in your life. Those moments, multiplied by the number of people that I get to coach and teach, that's been worth the sacrifices so far. Right? Like, wow. Right? So helping people be who they want to be, that's sexy.
Yes, I see your different currency. It's not in the material currency, but the richness that comes from the humanity and watching that element grow.
Yummy, yummy legacies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so I feel like education has been like the vehicle to attach to those people that are,
Yeah,
you know.
people come here. I mean, think about it. Do you go to work hungry for transformation? Yeah, not so much. Any other thing that you do through a voluntary association? Yeah, okay, you want some transformation. But when we come to school, we are showing up.
You're like, something's got to change, and I'm going to give time and money to do it.
And it's really the investment of time and money that when you can, like there's people who are like, they take a customer service approach, right? I'm investing time and money, so I've earned my grade.
Yeah.
Right? Those people don't love me so much.
It's too easy of the answer. Like, you know, like, just tell me what to do. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to that piece behind your heart that you haven't met yet.
Yes.
Like, here's your top motive, but there's an underlying one. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So then, okay, so we had 25 years in the corporate, which has totally helped you to understand and reach and apply here.
Oh, and I love changing stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's what so Leah, Rose, and Lori Brandt and I, like, that's what we got to do. We got to build this thing from the ground up. And, just between Leah and I have 55 years of experience. Business, corporate, entrepreneurial, organizational experience. And like, and organizations love it when people solve problems. Organizations love it when somebody can come in and okay, so this is what we do in the MBA, and literally this comes out of my own personal life, this language, because I coined it years ago to describe myself. But what we do in this MBA is we help people move people, projects, organizations, and society. That's what I learned to do in corporate America, was move stuff. Invaluable education.
Yeah.
Invaluable.
Wow. So combining so that was like a school in itself.
And actually,
corporate.
honestly,
Yeah.
can I say this? The second best school. The Carnival is the best school. I use those skills every day, right?
Right. Well, like, I think about all the different kinds of personalities and backgrounds that you saw and how people interacted, of like, to know when you step into the corporate world, it's just a different kind of Carney.
It totally is.
So like, you learned those skills of like, oh, look at all these, and then you worked internationally, which helped because you experienced a lot of that.
Much.
And wow, yeah. So it's the school of life, and then education has been part of the vehicle.
That's right.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Now, so you shared a couple mentors regarding the Carney life world. Tell me about a mentor that you experienced in your corporate world that stands out.
Tom Finnegan stands out. I think you would find that hilarious. So I met Tom Finnegan at Motorola, and when Tom, I can't even remember what his title was, but we were running the cellular infrastructure business on the international side, so we're selling. So he oversaw a lot of people, and Tom, a little heavy set, Irish. So a couple of moments with Tom. First, when Tom came in to his new position to work with us, he had one-on-one meetings with everybody. And I watched that. I thought that was, and this is like a million years ago. So I'm 55 now, and I was 20 something. So a million years ago. It's common practice for people to hear that they should do this now, but it wasn't when Tom was doing. Very unusual in a hierarchical organization, especially. So I was curious about Tom. And I did a lot of high-level work when I was really young. So I was serving top executives with these international events. So I would have, remember how long ago this is? Now, I want to say it out loud. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, more than 30 years ago. And at that time, for these events I ran, each event had about a $1.5 million budget. Right? So I'm running a 3 to 4 day international event with a $1.5 million budget. And I would work with people very top of the house, because what we're doing is we're working with people top of the house at our clients who are making multi-million-dollar purchases over multiple years. And they're coming together to this conference, and I'm educating them, and I'm taking care of them and their spouses or whoever else they've brought with them. So this is we're in Bali, Indonesia, we're in Phuket, Thailand. These are very high-end kind of things. And I'm working with very high-end executives. And I made a mistake. You can imagine, when I was young, I was aggressive, and Motorola was a really tough culture. So I fit right in, right? I'm an
You're
intense and fierce problem solver. If somebody asks me to do something, it will get done.
Yeah.
And I was much fiercer when I was younger, much less classy. and I made a mistake. I pushed an engineer way too hard, way too far, and felt really self-righteous about doing it. And Tom totally supported me in front of the group that was struggling with the mistake I made. And then he pulled me into his office, and I'm pretty sure I still have a footprint on my ass. And Tom gave me a very clear coaching about how big of a mistake I'd made, what it would cost the unit, and what I needed to do to fix it, and then what I needed to do to never do it again. It was all very clear.
Wow.
So I had people like that in my life.
Those are good. Those are really good people.
And so I had a super toxic female boss, and learning how to navigate that. And it wasn't until
The anti-mentor?
The anti-mentor, yeah. It wasn't until I found out after several months of me experiencing her toxic behavior. So for example, this is just a small end of toxic behavior. I didn't wear makeup in those days, and I dressed more casually. And she told me that there was no way I would advance in my career unless I started wearing makeup and dressing differently, right? And that was just a little flavor of toxic. But several months into and I still don't like people named Nancy. Like, if I meet a Nancy, it makes my stomach hurt. I'm forever biased against Nancy's. But I found out this was her first job she'd had after going into remission on cancer. I thought maybe I'd be toxic too.
Yeah.
Right. She was living life in a different place. She was coming back from something I didn't understand. That helped me, but I got out of that job pretty quickly. So mentors they swing both ways, right? Who you don't want to be like, and who helps you be different than how you are, and who you want to be like.
I like that. Yeah. To see both sides of it. And then, why don't you share with us a mentor that you have now?
The best mentor in my life is William Kepke. You can find him on Instagram, the Bill Kepke. Bill is like my grandfather and my younger brother at the same time. I tell him sometimes he's 12,000 years old. He's a really old soul. Amazingly smart, fun, quirky guy who I trust with my body, which is no easy feat. He's my strength trainer. And I start and end my week with him. So 7 a.m. on Mondays and 7 a.m. on Fridays. And, all I can say is, you're lucky if you get a Bill.
I love that. Right now it's somebody getting you in the body intelligence half of it, which I think for me it comes later in life. I don't know, there's some people that focus on that early, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I have a body.
Right.
I thought it was just a brain and a heart functioning, but there's this that has to be carried.
And cared for and respected and taken outside.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my goodness. I love that. So I want you to just share a little bit about those hats back there.
Oh, my hats.
Give me just a little bit about that, and that's
Can I pull the card over? Okay, good. So I don't know why. You and I both have this, right? We have the hat thing, and I'm not a prop person, so it's pretty funny. But another mentor in my life who I won't name to protect their privacy, but we've had a wild few years getting to know each other and co-mentoring each other. And one of the things that they've introduced me to, I think I already knew this intellectually, but they've introduced me to the experiment of being comfortable with being all the parts, all the cells, right? And so Lori Brandt and the team got me this for my birthday, and like, isn't it amazing? Like, oh my gosh, I put that on, and whew, I feel her.
A little bit of structure and
a little bit of
flair and
right, fun. So right, but this comes out of community and playfulness and sexiness. This, oh gosh, well, so Jenny Riggenbach got me this hat.
I love that.
But more importantly, Quinn and Jenny and Melissa Moss and Leah C. Knights and my roommate Karen and a million women that I'm forgetting to name right now, and I'm very sorry, threw a surprise party for me. And it was during COVID, and they tricked me, and it was at Quinn Hom's house, and there was a balloon arch, and I'm gonna cry because I swear I regressed to about 3. That was really disorienting for me in a magical way, but I didn't know how to digest it. I think I'm still digesting it. I have the stack of cards that I got people from that. It still sits on my bedside because I think I'm still processing what it meant for women to invest in me that way. I don't know, but so Jenny Riggenbach got me that. Isn't that nice? That's right.
I love it.
So a little bit of winter fun there, and I like the animal print. So again, people, community, a different person to be, and I think. Right, this is the playful part of my Instagram handle is MBA LYNA, so that's the playful part. But MBA LYNA gets some stuff done.
Yes,
right. So this is that serious.
She changes lives.
Cutting deals, making things happen. I love this hat. I have a dress an outrageous red dress with big flowers on it.
Oh, I love
this is my beach hat. Right.
I think I've seen that in pictures.
Yeah,
Yes.
This is the favorite beach hat. It rolls, it travels. I have been in this hat predominantly, maybe exclusively with family. A lot of California time in this hat with people that I treasure. You have a made-up family. I have a biological family, but I started living with my best friend and her daughter a million years ago, and I've been living with them or her ever since. I met Kiki when she was 6 or 7. We started living together just as she was beginning high school, finishing junior high, beginning high school, and then she's 32 now. So I couldn't biologically have children, and that's devastating.
Yeah.
And when my 20-year marriage ended, when we were both devastated that we thought we were going to have children together. I mean, Brian and I, that was at the core of our shared identity. And when I decided to get a PhD instead of a baby, because that wasn't going to happen, that was kind of our transition time into not being married anymore. And not long after that, Karen and Kirsten, Kiki, and Karen's son, Josh, and then later his wife, Topaz and Mila, they all adopted me. So usually, an adult adopts children. And in this case, they took me in. And so this hat is lots of beach time with that crew. And you know how you invest in family in a different way, right? I invest in you and you invest in me, but it's different than how you and Lee invest in each other, right?
Yeah.
And so this hat is it's interesting. I would say this hat is about the part of me that wants to be loved. These two hats are about putting out energy, but
this one you're getting accepted and
right.
adopted.
This is that lovely, and it's about beach time, which is I need water. I need water, and I really like oceans. I think this is just about sexy. Just a little sexy, playful. This is, I've worn this hat more than once to Levitt Amp.
Yes.
Which is our concerts here. So this is a lawn concert hat. This is a walking hat. You're gonna go out in the sun, take a nice long walk, protect.
Yes, I've seen that.
Little UV protection. So I wear this a lot. This is movement, I think.
Yeah.
Movement. I didn't bring a hunting hat. Bill will be disappointed in me. I'm not only his strength.
We're shouting it out though.
I'm not only a strength student. I'm a.
Yeah, you've gotten into hunting.
Oh my gosh, 3 years. Yeah, read Hunter, Woman the Hunter.
Wow.
Yeah, he gave me a book to read. Who knew a book would have me learning how to crossbow hunt and gun hunt and do things with animals. Like one day, literally One day he dropped off a dead goose on my door. He said, "Hey, I left you something. You got a goose in your door." So I went out and I had to dress the goose. I had to find a video and learn how to dress the goose. Okay, so anyway, I didn't bring a hunting hat. I do, though, have my amazing MBA hat. The last time I don't wear this a lot, but the last time I wore it, I was with Natalie Aneskovich and Chris Budzinski, and we staged a bike ride of all of several of the murals in town. The murals that Create Portage County had staged in town, and they did a bike ride, and I held down home base for everybody who was coming in. So I was at Create, and people were out riding the murals, and
That's so fun.
so this is even though it says. This is what we do in the MBA, right? We connect with everybody,
Yes.
right? And so Create has been a huge part of the MBA story. Our very first fellow, Leah C. Knights, worked at Create Portage County, and so we partner with them every chance we get. So
Oh, I love that.
all of my hats I didn't know this when I picked them.
They're so great.
All of my hats are people and groups and different parts of me, right?
That you like share.
That I get to honor, but it's about honoring. But this again, I love the way you said that. My God, the way you said, kind of peeking behind the heart. That's I make room to peek beyond my own heart.
Yeah.
And I'm not done because
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like I'm pretty complex and there's a lot of
deep cavern. Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. Is there's the side that we present, of course, but then there's that other side, whether we choose to protect it or not share it because we want that piece for ourselves because we've given so much for ourselves. So I think that's really fun that you use those to show those other parts of you that create the whole part, which is a part of this whole program, and I've been so thankful to be a part of it. And the support walking through my dark times. So
well, we're grateful.
Yeah.
We're, Kim and Leah and Tanya and Lori. We're all grateful that you chose us.
It's been
It matters.
great. It
Chriselle and all of our TAs and Callie and Kaylee and Olivia, Abby. I mean, we're all so grateful. Kevin Heil, our first TA. We've put our heart into this, and we're glad it's a safe place for you and others to grow.
Yeah, I didn't expect to find such a safe place in education. like a facility of this sort, because it was so scary. But I'm like, oh no, it's just a vehicle to transform society and people.
Yeah. And you get an exceedingly meaningful credential out of it because the MBA signals something to other people that you did the work on.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, thank you so much. We're gonna sign off here.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation with LYNA. Something that I get so excited about hearing is, and through walking through the MBA program with her, getting to hear about all these different types of mentors in her life. I know at the end there, she talked about these hats and how they're all different and represent different people in her life, and isn't that just the truth? I don't know if you've ever stopped and self-reflected on that, of like who's impacted you and whether they were an actual, in an actual leadership role, or whether it was a friend that really just inspired you in a different way with the fact that they thought differently, and just being able to hold that and think about that. And then also all those people that accept you for where you're at and all your messiness. And that is one of those things that I've picked up from LYNA, is we're all in this together. Nobody's perfect. And I just hope that you're willing to get out there and share your story and be open. Don't hide the messy bits all the time. I'm not saying you have to lay it out for everyone, but when we do let people in, transformation happens. And that's what this whole thing has been about. Constantly transformed by each conversation. I loved it. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. This is phase 1, and I'm looking forward to what comes next.